Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. Jan chose our topic for today, and it's causing an effect. And she makes the statement that most people go through life believing that because this happened, this had to happen. But it's realizing the fact that because this happened, we can put a break on it. We don't have to have that happen. And been reading Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and learning how to cause the effect that gets you what you want. So, Jan, what's your thoughts on that? How do we do that?
How do we do that? Well, we go into linear thinking with the thinking that A causes B. And we're taught that. That's called the Newtonian method, is to say A causes B. You know, apple falls down from the tree because gravity's pulling it down. And so there's so many things that are explained from A to B, but sometimes there are other things that get in the way from going from A to B. And sometimes they're accidental, and sometimes they're things that we can actually do on purpose. And so I'm just as we're talking about mental health here and choice theory, I thought I'd use a mental health example as the Newtonian A to B example. And that's when we start going to the disease model, where depression is caused by a serotonin deficiency. So there's a deficiency in the brain, and that causes the person to become depressed. And so they take an antidepressant, and then something happens. And so sometimes they feel better, sometimes they don't feel any different, but sometimes they feel too good, and they go to the mania side. So then now they've got a diagnosis of being bipolar, because they can be depressed and they can be manic. And so that's when you're looking at the A causes B, because we have to have an explanation. But when you're looking at a different way, and not really thinking A to B, and not thinking that there's something that's causing this directly, that there's a whole lot of factors that gets into what they call the quantum theory, where instead of looking at just one thing cause this, is that there's a lot of things. And Mona said it here many times, we're all connected. And we're all and we are, whether we like it or not, we're all connected. And so how we respond to certain things is going to be different depending upon who else is in the room, what else is going on in our life. And so, like, for example, if a person breaks up with her boyfriend, it's natural for her to feel depressed. And yeah, maybe there's not as much serotonin going into the brain, and that's has an effect on the mood, but it's not because the brain is not functioning, it's because something happened in her life, and that there's something going on. And depending upon how the woman feels about it, it's going to determine how she's going to handle it. And like, she may have very supportive friends and family that help her through it, or she may have realized that, well, maybe this relationship wasn't so good, and this might be the best thing to happen to me. And so, when you look about when you get back to the quantum theories, you understand that there are a lot of different things that affect what you do. And A happens, but there's all kinds of probabilities on what happens next. And so if I want to have something good to happen, why don't I try to stack the deck in my favor so that it goes to something that I'll be happy about and that I can feel better about, so I can get through this quicker. And that's kind of what Joe Dispenza talks about in his book, is we get caught up in the same things over and over and over again, and that leads us to the same results. But if we can kind of change up what we want, and to really think about what we want instead of poor me, this terrible thing happened to me, and how else can I bring the energy of what's going on around me to make it a positive result, instead of something that I can't get out of bed for. So that was a lot going through my head.
So there are 26 letters in the English alphabet,
Yes, there are.
and we need to use all of them.
We don't have to.
Well, or maybe we do. I mean, that all are connected. You know, those 26 letters in the English alphabet can just cover every thought and invention and concept that there is in the world once we get to understand it in that language or whatever and kind of translate it into our own. It really is all connected. So I was kind of doodling as you were talking that
Yeah.
because A happens, B has to happen. And looking at the fact that A and B happening together, then that's the consequences of what was happening. But as we debate those consequences, if I had acted differently, if I had thought differently, if I had done something differently, if I had walked away instead of walking into, if I had this, if I had that, as we begin to debate it, not to argue with, but that debating, I mean, we may initially kind of debate it, but that lead to evaluating. That if I had made a different choice, as opposed to the choice that I did make, what could have been the outcome? And as we can begin to see that it would be more freeing, more fun, more fulfilling, then we can really go and acquire higher heights.
Right. Right. Yeah, and how do you think about it? I mean, if we think about things and when we go into that victim mode where it's, oh, poor me, this terrible thing has happened to me, you create a negative energy around you. And we've all been around people who, bad things have happened, and it's just uncomfortable just to be with them and be in that negative space, especially when you're feeling good. And you don't want to. It's like, no, don't pull my energy down. I'm in a good place. But we have a lot of things around us that we can use to help us to move forward.
And so, can you prevent that negative environment from pulling you down?
You can work on it to keep it from pulling you down.
So it's possible.
It's possible.
We kind of have to know about it initially.
You have to recognize it when it's happening.
Yeah.
It's best to recognize it early.
Yeah, because I noticed in the little thing that you sent out that instead of thinking about what caused the effect, take action and cause the effect that you want.
Right.
And so, but we have to be aware of it. It's becoming aware. And how that, I know Joe Dispenza talks a lot about the fact that the body becomes the mind.
Right.
In that the body gets so used to using the right hand that it just automatically picks up a pencil with the right hand and is really discombobulated if you stick it over into the left hand. Because the body itself has, through, that routine that we go through, can be a rut.
Yes, it is. It is. But it's so easy. Our brain is lazy, and it's so easy to go into that rut because it doesn't have to think. It just does what we've always done. And so if we don't like that rut that we're in, we have to start thinking different things and doing different things to get out of it and create what we want. But we have to know where we're going and what we want.
And we have to know where we are.
Right.
So if we see that and we're going to the negative or we're going to the aggressive or the whatever, we have to know that so that we can calm ourselves down, or so that we can pep ourselves up, so that we can take control of what we can take control of.
Yeah.
And then realize that it is having an effect on the environment, on everything around us. It is affecting others either a positive or in a negative.
Right. Yeah.
And then it takes that time to really, really think about it. But it's looking at the fact that everything is a learning experience. And so initially, as we were talking back and forth, you mentioned something about the mirror effect.
Right.
Well, that has happened with me this week, okay? We have timeshare, okay? And we use it frequently. because we have bonus time and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, whenever we go to our own, it's really nice and I really like it. But this time we went to a different one and so forth. And we're in it, and but it's exactly the mirror opposite of
Okay.
the one, what's like going home to. And I look at this and I thought, I know that's exactly what it is. It's just that mirror opposite, but yet it's so different. And it seems so strange. And then I think about that the only way I know what I look like with any certainty is by this miracle of, well, the computer now, of a mirror.
A mirror.
And yet that mirror image is the exact opposite of who we are.
Yeah.
And it really causes me to just really, really think about. And so today we went for an update on all of our privileges for being owners and that kind of stuff. And we don't do that too often, but we went this time. And that young man that was telling us all of our benefits and wanting us to get more benefits and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
I had to remind myself and remember myself that my goals at age 30 is not the same as my goals today. As in travel and personally experiencing the world. At one time, my goal was to travel and to, go to all the continents and all this kind of stuff. I've been some, but, I'm not a world traveler. But now my goal is to travel, yes, that it's through information. It's through seeing things, making sense of choice theory.
Yeah.
It is through living heart math. It is through deciphering Greg Braden's The God Code. It is through learning to break the habit of being yourself by being who you really are deep down inside, as opposed to who we see and who we think we are through the various interactions that we have. And just going to be into that depth, that to just learn that new information and then to meld it together that expands into infinite. It just expands exponentially. The concept of the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing.
Right.
And I think back, in reading that first book that Dr. Glasser ever wrote, he talked about the unconscious. And I found I'm finding that so interesting, because later in life, he talked about, if it's unconscious and you don't know about it, then don't worry about it. No, look at what you do know.
Yeah.
And I think that's going hand in hand with what Joe Dispenza was saying, is that look what's going on right now and be aware of it so that in the now, you can do something about it. Whereas you can't yesterday and you can't tomorrow. What you can do right now. And it's kind of seeing that right now, this is what I'm feeling, but I know enough things. I know that that's not a static emotion.
Right. Right. And that there you can affect that emotion. You don't have to sit with it. If you don't like it, do something different.
Yeah. If nothing else, just jump up and down.
Right. And I think that's what Dispenza is saying in his book is that, we have all these same thoughts over and over, day after day, tens of thousands of thoughts, maybe millions of thoughts. And because when you start thinking about that, you realize that you do. You've got your routines and you're thinking this whole same thing. And so what's going to change if you keep getting into that rut where you're just thinking the same thing and doing the same thing? And so if you like the way you're feeling and like what's going on, then more power to you. But if you don't, you do have the power to change that. You're not the victim of your circumstances. There are many, many things that you can do. And sometimes the best thing for you to do may not be directly connected to it. You might think that there's something in maybe like your example I said at the beginning, where you broke up with your boyfriend and you're feeling alone and sad, and maybe you think the best thing to do is to go find another boyfriend. But you're replacing the loss, but you can't replace that loss.
Right.
But that's not the only thing that's going to help you to feel better. Yes, you were feeling good when you were together, but now you're not together, and so you have to find other things. And there are lots of other things around if you just look and experiment and try things. But when you just sit back and keep hoping that we go back to yesterday and not change it, you're just digging that hole deeper and deeper, going down that negative spiral.
Right. I have a client that I'm currently that made the comment the other day. He said, well, I've come to the conclusion that a woman is not the answer. I said, that is major. That is major. And it's not just that. A woman's not an answer. The man's not the answer. A baby's not the answer. All of those things can help contribute to a multitude of things, but it's not the answer. Mm-hmm. And when we're just looking for the answer, we get so myopic that we can't see how many other answers there are.
Right.
Or what a multitude of things there are that influences what becomes an answer, or what becomes, I think back with IBM, that back several years ago, they would pay employees to learn something if it was job related, to go to school and to get a degree if it was job related. And then someone came up with the idea that if we're going to offer education, whether they're learning a hobby or to knit or whatever, we'll pay for it because we want you to improve yourself. And how that those that they gave in to them to paint or to do various things, take an indenture somewhere, how it really did translate into more productivity in their work life. Mm-hmm. And in talking with them, it also helped the production and the creativity and the what's the word I'm looking for? Competence in everyday life.
Well, you feel good when your employer is supporting you in your hobbies and your efforts. It shows that they are concerned for you. They do have they are interested in you and your well-being. And I can see how that would create positive emotions inside you, where you're like, well, they're supporting me and they're helping me out here, so I'm more excited about my job, and I want to show them that I'm worthy of this.
Right, but the thing of it is, Shan, is that support is there even if someone is not cognitive enough to recognize.
Correct. That's right.
That's where the fact that everything is connected melds together. Mm-hmm. That you can see it, that whether we're aware of it or not. I remember one time listening to a guy give a presentation, and I was there, yeah, so what? I've heard all this stuff before, and I was just really glad when it was over with. And I surprised myself that 2 or 3 days later, I was thinking back on things he had said.
Is that right?
And the more I gave thought to it, I thought, you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Mm-hmm. And as we can begin to be aware of the fact and bring it into today and see how it's working, and then how we can apply it and continually evaluate as to whether it's working effectively or is it keeping me in a rut.
Right. Yeah.
Moving me forward.
Yeah, but the thing to really remember is that it's not just this one thing that causes whatever you don't like or whatever you like. Right. There's a lot of other things. And so if what you're doing is not working and is not getting you there, then it's time to step back and try something different. And maybe it won't sound like a good idea when you first hear it, but then after you think about it a day or so, it'll keep coming back to you if you should have taken that message.
Yeah.
Your brain knows that you should have paid attention. It's like, hey, Mona, you should have listened to this a little bit more. Let's process this a little bit more. And because there's just so many things that we can do. It's just amazing. And once you figure that out and you know that you can create a better life for yourself. But it just takes work. It takes time. It takes effort. But you can get there.
And it is a creation.
Yeah.
It's bringing it into existence. What was just thoughts become things.
Yeah.
And if you have that thought, and it's what, what Barnes Boffey said, that just so is so powerful. He said, get that end result in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. I don't like this. So what do you like? What do you want? Get that end result in mind. And then do today what you will be doing when you get there.
Right.
And then boom, guess what? That's taking you there. So it's on the fast track. It's not the one baby step at a time.
Yeah, and you become more aware of the things that are going on that would help you to get there, that you may have overlooked when you were in the victim mode thinking, poor me.
But in the meantime, until you do get there, do something that's going to keep you focused on the going as opposed to the staying where you are in that rut.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing it as a rut, if it's not, I know in working with the prisoners and when they were leaving, how do you change all this kind of stuff? So, there will be times that you're in a funk. I mean, let's just
right. That happens. But that's normal. You see, that's the thing. It's a normal part of life. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that just one thing happened. It just happens.
But don't set up camp.
Right.
I mean, light a fire under you, not one to warm your hands by so
right.
you can commiserate with everybody else there. And it becomes you who done me wrong song.
Right.
Yeah. And so I would give them this list, or I had filled in a couple of them. Say the alphabet backward. Now, if that's not going to change you out of your funk where you are, I mean, it will. Stand up and walk backwards. I mean, as we just begin to do, well, that's silly. Well, yeah, it's silly. It's kind of why Dr. Glasser talked about do something fun.
Yeah.
If you're going to change your mind, you got to do something fun. And then once you see the fact that, yeah, this is uplifting, it is energizing, it is, without, what were we fussing about? What was my point? As you distract yourself, then you can get into the mode that you really want to be.
Yeah.
And let it, and then a little bit later, just really think about it so that it can settle in. So it can settle in. Yeah, I like that.
And then you'll notice that you're generally happier than you were before. You don't really realize it's happening to you. And then all of a sudden, one day you'll go, I haven't been in a funk recently. I used to get there quite frequently, but it's not happening anymore. Because you're changing who you are, you're changing how you deal with things, and how you're learning how to move forward and not get stuck.
Yeah. So you have those clear intentions.
Mm-hmm.
That clear picture. Even if later you look back and see that same picture and it seemed a little fuzzy.
Right.
At the time, you begin to get a clearer picture. And then you begin to elevate your emotions to say, hey, yeah, I think I can do that. Hey, yeah, I think I can speak up. Yeah, I think I can keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something about that. I think I can. It's like a little engine that could.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's something about that. I think I can. Because deep down inside, deep down inside, we really do think we're special because we really are special.
Yeah.
And as we let that ego that's trying to, keep us inflated, let it do its job. Just don't go in that overinflated.
Don't go over.
Yeah. But get enough energy in there and strength in there to realize, you know what? Yeah, I'm just an okay person. Remember that book years ago, I'm okay, you're okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we are all okay.
We are. And who's to tell you that you're not okay?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's because we're telling ourselves that rather than recognizing that that is a part of my character, but I've let it become ruddy and flawed as opposed to polishing it up for it can be fabulous.
Or somebody may have brought it to our attention and we didn't really like the way it was brought to our attention, but that is who you are. You can accept it and say, well, that really is who I am, and I'm going to keep doing that. Or you can say, okay, maybe I don't like that about me and I want to try to do something different.
Right, right. I was just, I'm looking here at some notes that I had written just for myself somewhere in here. Where can I find that? That in 2006, I wrote Creating Value, an intangible and a tangible world, and it had a measure of success. And so in 2019, whenever the choice theory gift came in and was wanting to have some new products developed, I wanted to go back and reinvigorate and reproduce creating value. And then I had this friend speak up and say something about raise your sights. And that friend happened to be Jan Moray. To raise your sights, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that, but raise your sights and you've learned more stuff and go with something else.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, yeah, right. But this is so good. It is good. And I'm familiar with it and blah, blah, blah. Right. But the thing of it is sometimes rather than saying this is as good as it gets, because it's not, it's all this in heaven too. And it can always get better. There's always room for improvement.
It can. I mean, that's something that you really need to believe, is that it can get better. And just, so how do I move forward? What can I do? And get a little creative, have a little fun, do something different.
It's raising your own sights. It's seeing you in a different light. That if I created this, whatever this is, whether it's a cake or whatever it is, a painting, whatever, if I created this, you know what? I've got that creativity in me to just tweak it a little bit for something else, for something else, for something else. Because it's like seeds. It's like, I am digging up, I love bulbs. Because, you just can't hardly kill a bulb.
You can't.
The thing of it is they multiply, and you have to take that old bulb off and replant it, and it will produce twice the amount as it did with all those others hanging on. And so the same thing is true as in raising your sights in anything. It's seeing it a little bit differently. Opening a blind so that there's a new perspective on it, so that there's a new...
To open up and look at all the possibilities instead of just being, just looking in one direction, saying that this can only go here. It's like, well, what if I could do more? What if there are more possibilities? Is this A to B what I really want? Or maybe there's a point way out here that I want to access. And how can I get there? Let me challenge myself and
right.
do something different.
Yeah. So it's thinking new thoughts, and it is being emotionally involved with them. And sometimes those emotions are sad, and sometimes we need to sit with it and let it pass through.
Right.
And so it's being okay with it. It's not always expecting a high, but it's realizing that as we do process even those sad emotions, angry emotions, as we process them and let them go through us, just like the discards of food, it needs to have an outlet, whether that is through burning the energy through exercise or just breathing or burning the energy through the fact of proper elimination. It's getting it out.
Yeah.
So that we can be cleansed inside to let healthy things come in. including healthy thoughts
Right, right.
and
Because
healthy emotions.
if you're stuck in the negative ones, you're not allowing those to come in.
Right, right, right. And to realize that, you know, wanting things to be balanced is different than having everything exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really takes that offsetting balance to balance something.
Right.
The yin and the yang, and we need everyone. We need people. We need different personalities. We need interaction with all of those things to help make us whole, even if it's irritating.
Right.
We may not learn what was irritating if it wasn't irritating.
That's right. We may have never noticed it before, right? It might be a lesson we need to learn, right?
Yeah. So and it will bring up some emotion, but consider that and let that emotion in and of itself give you some insights into who you are and or who you can become, who you really are.
Right.
Who you really are.
Well, that's a good note to end on here. We're out of time. So good insight, good discussion, and thanks to our live guests, and thanks to everybody watching this after the fact. And we'll see you again next week. I guess we'll be back next week, even though it is Thanksgiving week, for another edition of Greet the Week. We'll talk to you soon.